Hey, welcome to Fish Innovation. We have another great episode this week. For all you SaaS founders or just lovers of SaaS, we have a great guest on today. We have Pierre Baugh. Amazing man. He's been doing almost 40 years in the SaaS industry, building tremendous products, platforms, you name it, that you probably have used at some point in time in your life or your career. So excited to have him on today. Pierce, welcome to the show.
Ben, thanks so much. It's great to be with you today.
So on the show, I love when founders and folks take some time to talk about sort of the journey that led them to what they're doing today, which is you got your strategic database solutions company, which is now an ability to essentially help a whole bunch of other founders and businesses get to the level of accolades that you did for about the last 40 years. So talk to me on what kind of got you to where you are today.
Thanks, Ben. It's been a long journey, yeah, and there's a lot of through lines through the whole time. And I started working with databases early on, at least 3 decades ago. And I've been helping organizations both at the enterprise level, at the commercial software level, throughout that time, help them really manage their information. And it's just a matter of the tools have evolved over that time. And today we're in a really exciting era between AI and low-code tools and process automation tools. There's some fantastic things that we're able to do now that we just didn't have access to before. And really what that does is really shortens that time frame, right? It's between, when you have an idea in your head and actually turning it into something real and turning it into software. And that's what's, super exciting. And so we're doing some great things now. But in a lot of ways, there's certain things that haven't changed over time. If you think of like SQL databases, they've been around forever. So really understanding a company's information needs at the core as a foundation is still important today. It's always going to be important. And even now, I think, Mark Benioff was saying that, that data is the new gold. And so that's really resonates with me because it's in terms of your AI, in order to really make AI sing for you, you need to be able to get your data, get it and process it and have it make sense and get it into AI and get data back and put it back into your systems. So that sort of those fundamentals are still at the base of everything today.
That's tremendous. I love that journey and how you're thinking about things. What I'd love to hear about is, where do you see things heading? I mean, you've been doing this for almost 40 years. You've definitely seen a lot of change within the industry, and really excited to kind of hear, especially with AI and all the tools and strategies you're using today, where do you see things, the next 2 years, 5 years, 10 years?
I think my son started working with me this year, so we're really working a lot with workflow automations and things like that. And these are tools that allow you to automate these processes. They've been around for a number of years, but it's no code. You're basically plugging in what you want to happen in the decision making, and then you're going to integrate AI into those decisions. We'll continue to see this democratization of technology so that smaller businesses, which is I think the most exciting part, smaller businesses will now have access to more and more of these tools and this capability. So that will get infused, I think, into more and more of it's one thing for JP Morgan to have automations and have AI working in the background. But what about like your local businesses, for them, just sort of, also all the services businesses, for them to have back office automations that are handling all of their, their kind of back office lift and all of that. I think that's going to be really exciting. And I think that's short term. I really think, Ben, I think long term, 5 years from now, you have to really kind of put your sci-fi hat on and to try to understand. We could be just like out of the whole monitor keyboard game. It could just be an Alexa situation, which is just that much more smart. You're just going to talk to a device. I think there will be more of just voice-oriented interactions with our computers. You have to stage your information somehow to get it to AI, because the power comes not from a sentence. The power comes from being to give sort of reams of data for AI to digest and quickly put it in context and then do some action for you, right? So, but I think that we're probably in for some dramatic shifts in how we interface with technology and computers. And I think that will be a big difference and a big change. What it can do, And I think that fully automated response systems, and they will probably include full video avatars. That technology is already really close. It's pretty darn good already. So that's, part will definitely, that's going to happen. I don't see it's unlike some technologies where they kind of like hit that boom, frenzy thing. This is more like the internet. I don't think we're anywhere near the peak of AI's capabilities. It's just getting smarter. And then if you here's one, throw quantum computers in there, which can compute at some unfathomable rate, So interesting days to come. And I think there'll be a lot of good, and there's going to be some not so good, and we'll just have to see. But I think flexibility and just staying. I read an article that was odd to me. They said that only 20% of corporate America is using AI in their day-to-day work. And that, I don't know if that's just like a false read on something. It seems everybody I know is using AI, like almost everybody. And certainly in the solopreneur, small business world, everybody seems to be using it on a daily basis. So I was a little shocked by that. And that was a recent article.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I would think that 20% is actually kind of high for corporate. I would think maybe what they've done is maybe they've adopted a Microsoft Copilot for their Microsoft programs. I guess technically it's Gen AI, but it's not.
Right.
What I'm thinking about.
Yeah.
And I think there's different varying levels. I've met people who are like, "Oh yeah, I just use AI. I made it do a little story." I'm like, "Oh, that's what you had to do. Anything else?" No, it was pretty funny. I think that's probably all I'm going to do with it. I'm like, "Oh, okay, that's cool." I think we hear about it, and I think people don't think about it as a tool. Just like if you were a carpenter and you didn't use a hammer, you would figure, "Okay, I'm going to use my hand." Well, that'd probably take you a really long time to put nails. Or you can say, "I'm going to get a rock." Okay, maybe we'll do that, and still going to take a lot longer. But you got a hammer now who, if you know what to use, you'll be able to get the nail in. You could also use a sledgehammer, but that's also not going to do well. So there's the tool itself, and then there's the user of the tools to get there. And so I think it's interesting that I think you'll have to have some sort of adoption of people recognizing like, "Oh wow, this is making my life easier," or I don't have to say too much to get it to do it. It just knows what I'm thinking. I think that's where the gap is today, for sure. A lot of frustration. Like, I don't understand. I said, "Do this math for me," and it didn't really do what I needed it to do. And it's like, well, how specific were you? Like, "Oh, I need to be specific." It's like, well, it's artificial intelligence, so it's intelligent just from a machine instead of a human. So how would you speak to a human who you wanted to solve for that? Would you do the same thing and just have assume the human's going to know what you're talking about? And it's like, oh no, you got to do this stuff. So really interesting. I think you got the two sides of the graph, right? Technology and then the adoption of it, and it's going to be a much slower curve on the adoption. And understanding. In terms of strategic database systems, right? Like you got a lot of clients you're working with. Are there any times, that you've had just sort of some aha moments or something, just an amazing breakthrough, or even, something hilarious that you didn't even see coming and you're able to say, "Wow, this is a huge shift." I'd, love to hear any stories you have around that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple instances, and it's not crazy stuff just automated emails, like where we have an alert system. One is a mental health app, And there's an alert system. So people report in how they're doing. And we look at that and we can compare, that to the last time they reported and things like that. How are you feeling today? And from that, we can make an alert that says we're gonna, we see something that's out of whack. We can alert people. We can alert a coach. We can alert a counselor to those events. And those kinds of things, like once you turn that on, it's just running all the time. Those things come in 24/7. When you see those automation type things and they're in play and they're working, that's kind of like, I don't know that that's an aha, but it's like, wow, that's a really cool thing, because it's like, it just works. And once it's in place, then it just works. And you can add to that, add different variations on it, things like that. So that's a pretty cool thing.
So that's really cool. You always come across different clients and different things they're building. I love that you've got all this experience to bring to talk about. It's so cool. Someone who's been in SaaS for so long, and those that are just starting to see like, hey, I've got an idea. I want to get into SaaS. What's something that with your experience and wisdom that you can impart to folks, whether they are for a first-time founder, or maybe they're even just in the middle of their career. What would you provide to them, some sort of education that could be useful for them?
I think if you have, one of the most important things, if you have any notion of this being of your SaaS being a B2B, in the B2B space. In other words, I'm going to sell it to a company, and they're going to have 1,500,000 users. If there's any kind of notion of that kind of growth, then you have to think multi-tenancy. But that I mean is one application, but people log in to a specific tenant, and then they get an isolated version of that application. So that let's say one company only sees their, well, look, if you log into Salesforce, you're only seeing your own company's data, right? So every big SaaS product is set up to be multi-tenant. But when you design a system, you have to think about that. I've seen systems that have been built where they didn't realize that or didn't know about it, or whatever. Now, all the data just belongs to a specific user. Well, you don't want that. You want a group of users to be isolated and be able to take care of them as one whole unit. And there might even be some sub-architectures in there, different departments or whatever. You need to be able to filter those groups. That requires a fairly complex security architecture. And sometimes people in the rush to build an app don't have that architecture built into the base of it. And that's really important. And then the next phase of that is putting micro switches in your application to say, I can turn this component on or off for any tenant. So I have a client where we can completely customize an experience for one organization that's completely different than another. They're using the exact same software, but they are going to look and feel completely different. And nobody's coding that. Those are just switches inside of a control panel that says, hey, turn this on for this client, turn this off. Here's the label for this. All sorts of things like that. So that kind of data-driven application, to me, that's like the most insightful thing I can tell to anybody who's going to get into the SaaS market. If you have any dream of ever going to any kind of a B2B situation, you're going to need multi-tenancy. And then you have to think about, what's the organization? I have to have an account structure in there, and then I have to have my user experiences driven by what account I'm logged into and attached to. So that's that, and that's I help people out with that all the time, and that's I've been doing that forever, and it works. Even in the enterprise level, right? So if you're working with a big, huge organization, it's the same thing. There's offices all over the country. Each office is different. Their data is private to that office, but somebody at the next level up might see something. I did an application for a child health and wellness platform that goes across. It's in 1,500 districts across the country. The security infrastructure for that was really complex because you have a whole district who can see what in that district. You start with a teacher in an individual classroom and a set of kids. And that rolls up to a principal might be able to see the whole school. And then at the district level, but then the visibility changes as you go up. So then you start to get more aggregate data. Then you have somebody might be sponsoring 16 schools throughout the country, but they can only see those 16 schools. So you get into these like matrix fabric of security. So as you grow and you have success, and as a startup SaaS, you're always trying to figure out what's your market going to be, and you're going to pivot, and you're going to pivot, and you're going to pivot. You probably know this, right? There's going to be some pivots in your life. So build your architecture from the get-go, because you can reverse engineer that stuff, but it's more of a pain to do it back in the rear view mirror than it is to try to do it forward thinking from when you're first starting out.
That's great advice. Would love, how can folks get a hold of you for strategic database systems?
Yep, I'm Pierce. So Pierce at strategicdatabasesystems.com, and I am Pierce Baugh on LinkedIn. Just Pierce Baugh is my LinkedIn account. So you can find me. I'm located in the Northeast here, and but I work with everybody across the globe. So wherever that is, as long as there's an internet connection, we can work together.
Awesome. We'll get that in the comments. It was awesome to go through all this stuff today. It was great. I mean, so many people are going to be able to learn from this and take back your words of wisdom. Is there anything that you wanted to leave the audience with or share?
Just that these are exciting times. The combinations of technologies that we're using now allow us to do custom development for small businesses. And I wouldn't want anybody to think, oh, we can't afford that. You can afford it. We can work with budgets on all scales. I love to work with smaller businesses. That's my passion. And so we find ways to do it. We have tools to do it. We have low-code tools, no-code tools. It does not have to be a $100,000 project to do some automations and get your business working. And more importantly, get your data kind of organized so that you can take advantage of all these new technologies and AI and workflow automations and things like that. It just sort of takes some time to sit down and go through that and see where are the pieces. And what's the organization look like, and we put that together, and then you can start building from there, and you take your time with it, but we can, you can work within a budget. So I wouldn't want anybody to think that they can't do it or they have to just do it themselves. It does help to have somebody with a lot of experience guiding you through that process.
I think today's day and age with tools shouldn't stop you from reaching out and making a connection. And then it's good to hear that you're saying, hey, money shouldn't be a barrier to do this, that there are ways. And I know a lot of folks are out there bootstrapping, but better to get your concept out there, get it tested, get folks using it, than worry it'll never get done because I don't have the money. Pierce is going to make it happen for you. So
absolutely.
Thank you again for coming on. I know that I learned a lot, and I'm excited for everybody else to be able to learn a lot as well. Again, we'll have those comment, how to reach out to Pierce, get connected with strategic database systems, and get your product out there. So thank you again, Pierce.
Thanks, Ben.